Do you ever feel like you're falling? Not failing, not breaking, but free falling, away from the version of you that used to feel familiar. You still smile, you still work, but inside, something is crumbling. No more inspiration, no clear goals. And sometimes you wonder, am I depressed? Or am I just lost? But what if I told you, you haven't lost anything at all? You're being called home, not to become better, but to awaken. And before the light arrives, there's often a stretch of darkness. There are days when you don't want to wake up. Not because you're lazy, not because you're sad, but because there's nothing left worth waking up for. Everything is still there. The same familiar room, the repeating schedule, the people you once felt close to, the things you used to chase after. But now, it all feels like it's behind a fogged-up glass. You see it, but can't touch it. You're alive, but no longer feel yourself in the life you're living. And then, the mind begins to ask, is there something wrong with me? Am I just being weak? Why do I feel so empty when everything looks fine? But the truth is this, you're beginning to melt away from the old world. This isn't depression. This is the first fall, when the soul begins to crack out of its familiar shell. You start to withdraw. You distance yourself from noisy people. You find it hard to connect. You no longer want to explain your emotions to anyone because you can't even describe them accurately. What you're experiencing is an inner black hole, not meant to swallow you whole, but to strip away everything that's no longer real. From someone once vibrant, you become silent. From someone once ambitious, you start to feel like nothing is truly worth it. Your mind keeps spinning without going anywhere. You overthink. You analyze endlessly. You try to understand yourself logically and end up more disappointed than before. Am I going insane? Number yes. You're detaching from the noise. You're stepping out of the collective script that everyone's been performing. You're touching what's real, and what's real always begins with loneliness. Someone once wrote this in a video comment. I lost my wife in an accident. My mind was never quiet again. At times I thought maybe I was broken. But then one day, everything just stopped. I wasn't trying to understand anymore. I was simply present. They didn't know what to call it, but I call it the first doorway. It doesn't open to light. It opens to true emptiness, where you stop pretending. And right there, in the bottom of the black hole, for the first time, you don't try to escape. You begin to observe. You let everything fall apart. Every role, every slogan about being strong, every expectation others placed on you, everything collapses in silence. And strangely, as everything falls, there's one thing that doesn't. A fragile but undeniable presence, like a quiet gaze from deep within you, saying nothing at all, just being there. That is the first thing left after the fall, and that is where the next chapter begins. When you realize you are not the one thinking the thoughts, you are the one watching the thoughts unfold. Your mind was always taught to be the map, a complex map, analyzing, remembering, comparing, calculating, controlling, reasoning, planning, avoiding risk. And you believed that. You once took pride in your thinking abilities. You once thought that if you could control enough, prepare enough, and understand enough, then the pain wouldn't find you. But then you realized, the more you think, the more lost you feel. The more you try to control, the more tangled it gets. The more you analyze, the emptier it becomes. Maybe the mind was never the map. Maybe it's just a loudspeaker for fear, a machine predicting life from old wounds, an inner voice that isn't you. You start noticing. The voice in your head never stops. It doesn't need you to turn it on. It just runs. And the strangest part is, you never actually chose it. It tells stories. It judges. It doubts. It rewinds the past, imagines the worst future, and fears things that haven't even happened. And you, the one who thought you were thinking, are being thought. Someone once wrote this. I can't turn off my mind. It keeps replaying regrets, mistakes, everything I did wrong. I'm stuck in a loop like broken software slowly draining all the life out of me. Do you see yourself in that? The mind, the thing you once thought was you, now feels like an AI programmed by pain, fear, and unhealed memory. And that map begins to crack. You start to see the repetition. The thoughts aren't new. They're just remixed versions of the past. You compare, but only to your past selves. You worry, but only about scripts that never actually happened. You blame yourself, but based on who you were 5 years ago. It's like you're living inside a simulation, a matrix created by your mind. And now, you're beginning to see the code. For the first time, you ask, if I can hear this voice, then who is the one listening? That question is the first crack in the wall. The mind realizes it isn't the whole. It's just an interface. The map is no longer the territory. You're no longer inside the map. You're looking at the map from somewhere deeper. Of course, the mind resists. It creates a fear. If I stop thinking, I'll lose control. But that's the trap. Because it's the mind that created the illusion that control was necessary for survival. It's the mind where exhaustion began. It's the identity built from fear. When the map shatters, it doesn't mean you're lost. It simply means you're beginning to walk without a map. You start experiencing instead of interpreting, feeling instead of analyzing, being present instead of navigating. And here's the beautiful part. When the mind pauses, a space opens up. Not a dead silence, but a vibrant emptiness. You no longer need to think to know. You just stay and let everything reveal itself. In that space, for the first time, you meet something again. The observer. It doesn't speak. It doesn't judge. It doesn't need right or wrong. It just watches and is present, silent, yet profoundly powerful. And this is when the real transformation begins. The moment you choose to become the one who observes. When you're no longer caught in the stream of thoughts. When you sit still and stop trying to understand. Something strange begins to happen. You start to see. Not with your eyes, not with your mind, but with a kind of knowing that needs no words. That's when you realize there's a part of you that never speaks, never shouts, never chases. It simply watches. It's like stepping into a room full of mirrors for the first time. But only one mirror is real. Not the one that reflects your outer form, but the one that reflects within. You stand there, and for the first time you see. You've always been there, watching, but never truly noticed. That part of you, we call it the observer. It isn't swayed by emotion. It isn't ruled by memory. It doesn't need language to understand. It simply is, silent like a foundation, as if you've been standing on solid ground your entire life, but never once looked down to see it. And when you start to notice it, everything begins to shift. Thoughts still come, but they no longer pull you in. Emotions still rise, but they no longer drown you. It's like standing by a river, watching the water flow, instead of being swept away by it. At that moment, you're no longer the thinker. You become the one seeing the thoughts. That difference might seem small, but it's revolutionary. It breaks you out of the invisible cage you've lived in for so long. The cage you once called me. Someone once shared this. I was sitting in a park when my mind started replaying an old argument again. But this time, instead of diving in, I watched it like I'd watch a passing cloud. And then it dissolved. Now you understand. The observer doesn't need to fight thoughts. It simply sees them. And in that seeing, false layers begin to melt. But don't confuse this. The presence of the observer isn't avoidance. It's not numbness. It's not fake peace. It's your deepest self, untouched and unwavering. It's there when you're happy. It's there when you're lost. It's there when you're breaking down. And it's still there when you begin coming back to yourself. From this point, a quiet rebellion begins. Instead of your mind leading you, you begin guiding your mind. You use it as a tool rather than letting it use you. You no longer have to believe everything it says. You no longer need to react to every whisper. Because now you know, if you can observe something, then you are not that thing. And this opens up a new space, a space between you and your reaction, between thought and action, between emotion and choice. In that space, freedom begins, not because you control everything, but because you're no longer controlled by everything. But this process, though beautiful, is also painful. Because when you become the observer, you start to see everything you once believed to be real was just a mask of the ego. You realize the dreams you chased for years were never yours. The definitions of success and happiness, you never chose them. You were living as a character in someone else's script. And then, the hardest part begins. The ego starts to dissolve. You no longer know who you are, no longer cling to any image. You're not the good person, not the bad one, not the awakened one, not any label at all. Just a quiet stillness. And within that stillness, you step into the next chapter, the dissolving of the self. You once believed you were your name, your interests, your job, what others thought of you, the definitions you repeated to yourself in the mirror every morning. But slowly, those definitions begin slipping through your fingers. Not because you lost them, but because you no longer believe in them. You begin to see clearly. You've been living as a character, not as your truest self. The roles you played start to loosen. You're no longer the cheerful one, no longer the strong one, no longer the wise one, or the one everyone likes. You begin to question even the things you once took pride in. You start to wonder, do I love this job, or am I just afraid of being judged? Am I living for myself, or for the persona I built to protect myself from pain? This is when the ego begins to crack. You feel empty. Not the sadness kind of empty, but the kind of emptiness that comes from no longer having an identity. You're no one. There's nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to prove, only a blank space. And in that blank space, confusion sets in. You feel like you're dissolving into thin air. No shape, no role to play. No one truly sees you, not even yourself. You might cry, not out of pain, but because you realize you've been alive for so long without really living. You've done everything right, yet something still feels wrong. You've tried so hard, but never asked, for whom? At this point, you'll be tempted to create a new identity to cling to, a new label, a new role. Some choose to be the awakened one. Some become the healer. Some wear the badge of the more enlightened. But if you're brave enough, you'll stop clinging. You'll stay in the emptiness. And within that space, you'll begin to see something deeper. You don't have to be anyone to be yourself. This is what ancient traditions called spiritual death. No one's killing you. There's no physical destruction, just layers of identity falling off, bit by bit. And yes, it hurts like death. But death is not loss. Death is separation. Separation from the you used to call you. Separation from family patterns, social molds, and collective scripts. Separation from the need to be understood, recognized, or named. Separation from everything you once used to feel worthy. In this state, it becomes nearly impossible to keep performing. You run out of energy to pretend. You can't fake being okay anymore. You lose the ability to participate in meaningless conversations. You stop trying to explain why you've become different. You just exist, quietly, vaguely, but more truthfully than ever. And then, a strange silence begins to bloom inside. Not loneliness, but a kind of life you've never had a name for. No more inner voices controlling you. No more fears leading the way. Only presence. You are no one, but you're missing nothing. You have no clear goal, but you're not lost. You don't feel good enough, but you no longer feel not enough either. You simply see, feel, touch, hear, breathe. And now you are alive. And that's when you begin to sense the strange, sacred moments of stillness. There's a kind of moment that doesn't last more than a few seconds. But if you've ever experienced it, you'll never forget it. It isn't loud, it isn't dramatic. There's no intense background music like in a movie. It's just a strange stillness that suddenly rushes in. And in that split second, it feels like time has stopped. No more thoughts, no more reactions, just the pure sensation of being present. You could be doing dishes, walking down the street, looking at the sky, or simply sitting. And then, it happens. All the noise disappears, both outside and inside. You weren't trying. You weren't meditating. You weren't doing it the right way. It just arrived. A living silence, like nothing you've ever known before. It's like hearing the space between two heartbeats for the first time, feeling the pause between two breaths, a moment where there's no you, yet somehow you are more than ever. Someone once shared, I was sitting under a tree, not thinking, not waiting, and suddenly I felt there was no me. Just breathe, a strange kind of peace. The moment I noticed it, it disappeared. But in those few seconds, I understood something that no book could teach. Have you ever felt that? That moment wasn't trying to teach you anything. It didn't come with answers, no formulas, no explanations. It simply appeared and invited you to appear with it, a raw encounter with life itself. And strangely, after that moment, everything familiar seems subtly different. That tree looks more real, the sky appears bluer, your own hands feel like you're touching yourself for the first time. This is what happens when you step out of thought and return to the field of pure presence. Not presence as a theory, not presence as a public talk, but the direct experience of what is. You begin to understand why people say, the present moment is all there is. because you've touched it, not through understanding, but through the disappearance of ego. No more thinkers, just awareness. No more maps, only the landscape. But here's the thing, that moment won't last. Soon the mind will pull you back. It will ask, what was that? How did I get it? How can I keep it? And the moment you ask, it's gone. But don't be discouraged, because each time you taste it, you stretch your capacity for presence. It's like your body learning how to breathe again, after years of only knowing how to tense. And from then on, you begin to seek it, not through effort, but through surrender. You don't chase the light, you become lighter, so the light can find you. And that's when you know you've begun to come home, not to a place, but to a state where you no longer need to escape your thoughts. You no longer need to win in your mind. You just need to stay. No one teaches you how to return to the present. They teach you how to run, how to achieve, how to outdo others, how to control the future and overcome the past. But no one teaches you how to stand still. No one teaches you how to stay. No one teaches you how to breathe without trying. After those strange moments of silence, you begin to long to live in that state a little longer. Not because it's better, but because it's more real. You no longer want to meditate to reach a state. You simply want to touch that natural state again, the one you once knew and somehow forgot. This journey doesn't require asceticism. It doesn't require complex formulas. It begins with the smallest things. The way you take a step, the way you turn on a faucet, the way you hold a cup of tea, the way you listen to the fan spinning in your room. Someone once wrote, I discovered that when I focused on the feeling of wind on my skin, the distant sound of traffic, and the rhythm of my breath, my mind couldn't override me. Not because I fought it, but because I returned to the present faster than it could pull me away. That's the key. You don't need to fight the mind. You just need to be present before it takes over. The present moment is not an idea. It's a living anchor. A place where thoughts lose their grip. A place where you don't have to become anyone. A place where there is no judgment, no pretending, no striving to be worthy. Only presence. And slowly you learn how to return through small, sacred acts. Pausing 5 seconds before responding. Closing your eyes briefly before stepping outside. Feeling the soles of your feet touch the ground. Listening to water flow without judging it. Each small act is a doorway home. The mind won't like this. It will say, this is useless. It should be something bigger. What's the point of just breathing? But if you become still enough to sense the energy beneath that voice, you'll see the truth. It's the simplicity that's real. It's the complexity that's the illusion. And then you begin to notice something miraculous. When you are present, problems stop being problems. Emotions stop being enemies. Memories stop being chains, because you're no longer stuck inside them. You're seeing through them. You're no longer managing life. You're living it. You're no longer escaping the now to get somewhere else. You're staying in the only place where everything has always been waiting. And then everything slows down. No more needing to understand more. No more searching for something else. No more chasing the light. You begin to realize the light isn't ahead. It appears when you stop. And that's when a quiet light begins to rise from within. Not dazzling, not dramatic, not glorified, but soft, like moonlight in the night, like sunlight piercing the morning mist. This light doesn't blind. When people talk about awakening, they often imagine something intense, a sudden jolt in the middle of the night, bathed in radiant light, a booming voice from the universe, a glowing out-of-body experience. And then, when true awakening arrives, quietly, gently, you begin to doubt yourself. You ask, where's the flash? Why don't I feel an energy surge? Am I awakening? Or am I just imagining things? Here's the truth. Awakening doesn't come like lightning. It arrives like a soft light, one that can't be turned off. Not dazzling, not dramatic. No thunder, no metaphysical fireworks. Just quiet, subtle, but undeniable. It feels like the first time you realize you had been living without truly being there. And now, suddenly, you are. Not fully, not perfectly, but truly. True light doesn't demand you to change everything at once. It doesn't shout, drop it all, start over. It whispers, you can let go, just a little. Let go of the tension. Let go of needing to be right. Let go of trying to awaken the right way. Because real light has nothing to prove. It needs no validation. It doesn't seek agreement. It simply exists, quietly, beneath everything. Just like you, beneath every role you've played. Someone once said, I used to think awakening would be the moment I felt the most powerful, but instead, it was the moment I felt my weakest, and I accepted that without fear. That is real light. Light doesn't have to shine outward. Sometimes it's just a small flame, keeping you warm on a cold night. It doesn't have to light the whole path, just enough to see your next step. And often, that light only appears after the darkness has convinced you that there's nothing left to hold on to. It arrives when you stop searching, when you stop forcing yourself to grow, when you no longer need to be high vibe or fully healed, but simply real. Awakening isn't stepping out of the dark and into the light. It's learning to hold your light while still standing in the dark. And when you accept this, everything shifts. You no longer feel the need to be someone else. You no longer pressure yourself to awaken enough. You no longer compare your pace to others on the path. Because you now know, the light within you doesn't compare. It just wants to be seen by you. And that light is the part of you you once hid, the part you thought was too fragile, the part you believed had to die to survive this world. But now, it returns, softly, waiting for you to embrace it. Not as something divine, but as you, when you no longer try to please anyone else. And once that light has returned, you find yourself standing before 3 symbols. The mirror, the shadow, the door. When the true light begins to reveal itself, you don't immediately see heaven. You see 3 symbols, 3 milestones, 3 tests, 3 invitations. They don't appear with clear labels. No one explains them to you. They simply enter your life quietly and wait to see whether you're willing to face them. The first symbol is the mirror. Not the mirror that shows your face, but the one that reveals what's within. This mirror doesn't smooth over. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't make you feel better. It simply reflects every part of yourself you've tried to avoid, the anger you never acknowledged, the selfishness hidden behind morality. The pain is disguised as humor, the hunger for love and attention. Even when you always said, I'm fine, the mirror does not judge. It simply shows it all and asks you one question. Do you have the courage not to look away? The second symbol is the shadow. The shadow doesn't come from somewhere else. It is born right beneath the light you've worked so hard to maintain. It has strange forms. Sometimes it's a memory. Sometimes a recurring dream. Sometimes the patterns that keep making you sabotage yourself. The shadow doesn't want to be destroyed. It wants to be seen, touched, acknowledged, embraced, instead of pushing away. Everyone who walks the path of true awakening must one day walk through their own shadow. And then, when you no longer look away from the mirror and no longer run from the shadows, a door will appear. The third symbol is the door. This door has no handle. No one can open it for you. It isn't locked, but it only opens when you are ready to step through, not knowing what lies beyond. It promises nothing. No safety, no success, no applause. Only one thing: you will no longer be who you were. To walk through it means to let go. Let go of what you know. Let go of who you think you are. Let go of the entire journey of seeking, because on the other side of the door, there is nothing more, only you, as you've always been. The mirror is for clarity. The shadow is for forgiveness. The door is for rebirth. This isn't the end of the journey. It's where everything truly begins. There is a truth you never truly had to learn, because you didn't need to. You already knew it, long before the world taught you that you had to prove your worth. But you forgot, not because you were weak, not because you were lazy, but because you were trying to survive in a world that didn't allow you to be fully yourself. You were forced to forget, to be accepted. You were forced to wear masks, so you won't be hurt. You were taught to grow up by trading away the innocence of the child who still remembered the truth. And what was that truth? That you are enough. That you are the embodiment of life itself. Not lacking, not too much. That you don't need to chase the light, because you are the place where the light once lived. And when you awaken, you don't become more. You simply peel away the dust that has covered an ancient memory, layer by layer, not rushed, not forced, just honest with how you feel. You may call it the soul, the source, the self, God, the original frequency, the first heartbeat of the universe. The name doesn't matter. What matters is this: you were once connected, and now you only need to remember. This memory doesn't come from books, or from teachings, or from someone more enlightened than you. It arrives in stillness, in a glance, in the moment you stop trying. And when that moment comes, the truth you once forgot will step forward, without needing to knock. If you've made it this far, it's not because this video was extraordinary. It's not because the words were perfect. Maybe it's because your soul was ready. No one knows when awakening happens. It doesn't arrive like a bell ringing. It doesn't pop up like a phone notification. It comes like a whisper, and you, brave as you are, you listened. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to be high vibe, fully healed, or spiritually successful. You only need to stay, feel, and live true to whatever is vibrating inside you. And if someday you lose your way again, come back here, not to find answers, but to remember that everything you're searching for has been searching for you. Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but you've already turned your face toward the light. And that alone is enough to begin. The door was never locked. It's simply waiting for your touch. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. Thank you for choosing to awaken instead of just surviving. If this video touched something inside you, leave a word from the deepest part of you down in the comments. Someone out there might need it. And if you're ready, the next journey will begin very soon.